So, welcome to Jumbo IS and welcome to our lecture series called Daily News in Shorts. In this lecture series, we cover that day's newspaper or important news items in that day's newspaper within a short span of time, within 20 minutes. All right. So today we will be covering 12th July 2024's newspapers, important news items in those newspapers in a very short span of time. So quickly, let's take a look at the topics of the day. What were the important news items that featured in today's newspapers? All right. Now, there are four topics that are of extreme importance for our current affairs preparation as far as UPSC or any other civil services exam is concerned. Okay, so these four topics are as following. Number one, heat dome. Currently, there are heat wave like conditions in western USA, particularly California. All right. And the reason for those heat wave like conditions is a geographical phenomena or or weather based phenomena called heat dome. So there is a heat dome that has formed over western USA, and because of that, heat wave like conditions have been formed. Now, what is heat dome? Why is it formed? We'll talk about that. And recently, Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited Austria, and in 43 years, he has become the first Prime Minister to visit Austria in 43 years. Last time, the place was visited by Indira Gandhi. So, what was decided? What was the significance of this visit? We'll talk about this. Then, recently, annual survey of unincorporated enterprises. That means informal companies, informal enterprises. The data of annual survey of unincorporated enterprises has released, and it talks about fall in employment levels. So we'll talk about this. And India has received its first transshipment port, Deepwater transshipment port in Vizhinjam in Kerala. So what is a transshipment port? What is a deepwater transshipment port? What is the significance of this port for India? We'll talk about this. Okay, so without further ado, without further delay, let's start with topic number one, that is heat dome. Now, the entire western USA, particularly California lies on the western coast of America, right? So, entire western United States has come under the grip of sweltering heat wave, which began last week. Nearly 75 million people are under heat alerts and temperature records are tumbling. Now, the scorching temperatures and dry conditions are a result of heat dome centered over California. So there, it is a weather-based phenomena. A heat dome has formed over California, and because of that, heat wave-like conditions are being generated. Now, what is a heat dome? Let's talk about that. So basically, heat dome is a weather phenomena where a high pressure system develops over a particular place. Okay, a high pressure system develops over a particular place, and this high pressure system actually does not allow warm air to rise up. Okay, because there is high pressure over here. So a high pressure system being developed over a particular area does not allow warm air to travel upwards. Okay, warm air cannot even travel sideways because the thing is that this high pressure system is on a very large area, and warm air has a tendency to travel upwards, not sideways, mostly. Okay, so because this high pressure system is not allowing warm air to rise upwards, it acts like a lid over that place, which traps warm air in this place. Okay, so it is a weather-based phenomena where high pressure system in the atmosphere traps warm air like a lid. It's like a plastic or a glass lid being placed over a particular place, right? And warm air gets trapped over there. Now, since warm air cannot rise up, therefore warm air cannot cool down. You see, generally what happens is that if a particular area is facing hot conditions, then warm air rises upwards. When it rises upwards, it cools down and it forms clouds. Okay, this cloud cover actually protects that place from further sunlight, and that particular place is protected from further warming. Okay, but since warm air cannot rise up, there is no cloud cover. When there is no cloud cover, then it leads to more sunlight, more warming, and more drying of the soil. The longer that heat dome stays in one place, the warmer it is. Now, why has this heat dome formed over western USA? Okay, what is the main cause behind the formation of a heat dome? Well, the prime reason is slowing down of jet streams. Now, you must have studied jet streams in your geography classes, but if you have not, then let me just tell you in brief. Look, jet streams are upper atmosphere winds. Okay, These are winds that travel in the upper atmosphere, not in the lower atmosphere, upper atmosphere. Okay, like 8 to 9 kilometers above sea level. Okay, so these are jet streams. Generally, what happens is that these jet streams travel across the entire planet in west to east direction or east to west direction. Okay, now these heat waves are traveling in the upper atmosphere. So, whenever a high pressure system has been formed, these jet streams actually blow away this high pressure system away. Okay, now, jet streams, basically the purpose is that these are upper air circulation. These winds are in the upper atmosphere. And whenever a high pressure system gets formed, these jet streams blow away this high pressure system. Okay, they take it away. But because of global warming, because of rising temperatures, the speed of these jet streams has slowed down. In some places, it is stationary. And because these winds are stationary, they don't blow away this high pressure system. In fact, they generate more high pressure systems, high pressure conditions, because these winds stay stationary. And because they stay stationary, they exert a particular downward pressure, downward high pressure on the lower atmosphere, because of which warm air cannot rise up. Okay, so the cause is very slow or halt in jet stream movement. Remember, jet streams are upper air circulation. Okay, now jet stream, because of slowing down of jet streams, heat domes have formed in western USA. Okay. Now, what role does climate change play into this formation of heat dome? You can see over here in this map also. This is a heat dome. Scientists believe that rising global temperatures have made heat domes larger, they cover a larger area, and more intense. A 2021 study carried out by an international team of 27 climate researchers, which were part of World Weather Attribution, found that to be the reason for heat domes in Canada in 2021. In 2021, Canada also faced heat wave like conditions because of the formation of heat domes. And scientists believe that these heat domes were being generated in Canada, western part of Canada, because of global warming. Another study published in 2023 indicated that the intensity of heat domes is outpacing the rate of global warming, which means global warming is actually increasing or pushing the intensity, aggravating the intensity of heat dome formation. All right. So that's all about heat domes. Now let's move on to next news item, which is PM Modi's Austria visit. This is PM Modi. This is Austria's chancellor. Okay. Now Narendra Modi's visit to Vienna. Vienna is the capital of Austria. This week was the first by an Indian prime minister to Austria since June in 1983. The last time an Indian prime minister visited Austria, Vienna, was in 1983, and the prime minister was Indira Gandhi. Now, prime minister's decision to travel to Vienna immediately after he met President Vladimir Putin. You guys all know that a few days back, Prime Minister Narendra Modi was in Russia where he met Putin. Now, after Russia, he straight away went to Austria. Now, it is in this context that this visit is being read. Now, look, Austria, though lies in Europe, but it is not a part of Western Bloc of countries which are against Russia. It is a part of Europe, it is a part of EU, but it is not a part of NATO. So, Prime Minister's choice of visiting a European country which is not part of NATO, it is in this context that this visit is being read into. All right? Though many Western countries, including USA, UK, were angry with India that India visited Russia and is showing all the friendly signs with Vladimir Putin. Yes, Western countries were angry with us, and to balance that, Prime Minister Narendra Modi said in Vienna as well as in Russia that there is no space for war. War is bad. Negotiations should start and war should be seized. Okay? It is to balance that sentiment in the Western Bloc. Western countries were feeling that India is moving closer to Russia. So, to tell Western countries that they need not worry about India's closeness with Russia, India said that we condemn the acts of war committed by Russia, but we have our individual relationship with Russia, and it is that of friendship. Okay. Now, why is Vienna neutral in this conflict? You see, Austria has not taken any sides in this Russia-Ukraine war. It is not with NATO. It is not with Russia either. Now, why is Austria neutral? Well, there are historical reasons for that. You see, in World War II, Austria was occupied by Hitler, Nazi forces. When the Allied forces won against Hitler, Austria was liberated, but then the four victorious countries of World War II, US, UK, France, USSR, they decided to occupy Austria and divide it into four parts. In 1955, these four countries signed a treaty, okay, Treaty of Independent Austria, and in that they decided that Austria should be made an independent state. So till 1955, from 1945 to 1955, Austria was under these four countries, and after 1955's treaty, Austria was made an independent state. But a condition was imposed on Austria, and that condition was that Austria wouldn't take any sides between the Western Bloc and USSR, Soviet Bloc. Okay, so Austria is treaty bound to not take sides, and that is why now Russia's legacy has been taken over. USSR's legacy has been taken over by Russia, and Western Bloc, NATO, is as it is. Okay, Austria is treaty bound to not take sides, and that is why Austria took a balanced position on Russia-Ukraine war, much like India. Now, what is the significance of Austria for India? Why India considers Austria to be a significant partner? Well, Austria offers tremendous opportunities for bilateral collaboration in infrastructure, renewable energy, e-commerce, fintech, enterprise, basically economic trade. In addition to closer political dialogue, the two leaders emphasized a future-oriented bilateral sustainable economic and technology partnership. So India wants to collaborate with Austria because Austria has a lot to offer as far as its economy is concerned and as far as its technological know-how is concerned. Okay. Now, diplomatic relations between India and Austria were established on 10th November 1949. This was basically the 75th year anniversary of this diplomatic relation. So 2024 marks the 75 years of diplomatic relationship between India and Austria. So remember this fact. Okay. Now let's move on to third news item, which is annual survey of unincorporated enterprises. So basically, unincorporated enterprises are unorganized sector, unorganized industries, or we call them informal industries. Okay. Now, this survey data, generally annual survey of unincorporated enterprises is released annually, right? It's written annual. But this time the survey data has come out after 7 years. The last data point was for 2015-16. Okay. Now, this data is released by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. So remember these facts. Okay, annual survey of unincorporated enterprises is released by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. And in this data, government has said, or MOSPI has said, that the number of workers employed in informal sector in 2020-23 declined by 16.45 lakhs, 1.5% decline as compared to 2015-16. That means more people were employed in the informal sector. Remember, informal sector in 2015-16 than in 2022-23. Okay. Now, this was annual survey of unincorporated enterprises for 2021-22 to 22-23. It was released by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation. Now, this survey data has also pointed out the reasons for this decline. Okay, we'll get to that later. But first, we'll talk about what is the contribution of unorganized sector. Why does MOSPI studies unincorporated enterprises? Why are unincorporated enterprises important? Why is it important to gather data from these informal companies? Okay, so they contribute a lot to India's economy. 44% of India's GDP or GVA comes from informal sector. 75% of India's workforce is employed in 75% of India's workforce in non-agricultural enterprises is employed in unorganized sector. Okay, so it is quite significant. It employs a lot of people. It contributes a lot to India's GDP. That's why these unincorporated enterprises is or does become important. Now, let's jump to the reasons mentioned in this survey for this decline of 16.45 lakh workers. What are the reasons? So in the past 7 years, 3 major events happened which contributed to this decline. Number 1 was demonetization. Sudden withdrawal of cash due to demonetization in 2016. Now look, formal enterprises are more dependent on bank accounts, formal money channels, digital money, right? But informal enterprises are more cash dependent. Okay, informal enterprises are cash dependent as compared to formal enterprises, and that is why demonetization impacted them the most. Formal companies were able to brace for this, for the impact or brace for the trouble caused by demonetization, but cash dependent informal enterprises couldn't. So this is one of the reasons. Plus, coming of GST in 2017 brought these informal enterprises into their tax ambit. They also were forced to pay taxes. Plus, GST comes with a lot of compliances, rules and regulations. So these enterprises had to follow a lot of rules and regulations, and their regulatory burden increased. So that was one of the reasons. Plus, in 2020, national lockdown was imposed because of COVID-19 pandemic, which impacted informal enterprises the most. Formal enterprises had a lot of savings, and because of that, they were able to sustain this lockdown. But already liquid cash crunched informal enterprises. These informal enterprises were already facing cash crunch, and this lockdown further aggravated their troubles. So these are the three reasons. Okay, and last but not the least, Vizhinjam, India's first deep water transshipment port. So India's first deep water transshipment port, Vizhinjam International Seaport near Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala, received its first mothership. The name of the ship was MV San Fernando. Now, I know what you're thinking. What is transshipment port? What is mothership? We'll talk about that. Okay, but first let's talk about this port. Who made this port? What was the entire project cost of this port? So let's talk about this port. Okay, Vizhinjam is India's first, not just India's, Indian subcontinent. That means it includes countries like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and all. Vizhinjam is the first international deepwater transshipment port in the Indian subcontinent with a natural depth of more than 18 meters, which can be increased to 20 meters. The project cost was 7,600 crores. It was built by Adani Ports and SCZ Private Limited, and it was built by Adani Ports on a public-private partnership model, PPP model. And that public-private partnership model is called Design, Build, Finance, Operate, Transfer. So Adani Enterprises would design the port, they would build the port, they would spend money from their own pockets, they would operate the port, and then transfer the port to the government. Okay, this is the PPP model. Now let's talk about what I referred to in the beginning of this news item. What is a mothership? What is a transshipment port? Okay, look, what are transshipment ports? Basically, there are certain ports which are not used as destination. So, for example, London has to actually export certain items to Beijing. Okay, certain in fact, London has to export a lot of items to Beijing. Okay, so what would London do? London would actually hire a very big vessel, very big ship. Okay, this big ship will land in Colombo International Airport. From Colombo International Airport, this big ship will offload its containers, and those containers would be actually uploaded or loaded on smaller ships. Okay, and these smaller ships would go to different destinations. Some would go to Beijing, some would go to Australia, some would go to Singapore, right? In this case, Colombo is acting as a transshipment hub. Here, big ships arrive, offload their containers, and those containers are loaded on smaller ships for other destinations. So Colombo is a transshipment hub, and Colombo becomes a transshipment port. Okay, now what is a mothership? Mothership is basically a large vessel which contains containers for smaller vessels. Okay, when it comes, it offloads, and that container is then those containers are then shifted to smaller ships. Okay, so this would be a mothership. These would be daughter ships, if that is a term. Okay, now design, build, operate, transfer model. Well, it's again a PPP model, and I've explained to you. Adani Ports would design, finance, build, operate, transfer the port to the government. Okay, so these are the important terms that you need to be familiar with. Now, India until now did not have a transshipment port, and because of that, India was losing out a lot of shipping business. Okay, various ships did not land in India, but now because of this transshipment port, now many ships would land in India, and from there onwards, they would go to different parts of India or different parts of the world in Asia. Okay, so this would bring significant business into India, and India would stand to gain out of it. Kerala would stand to gain out of it. All right. And with that, we conclude today's session. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. And I'm sure it is adding value to your preparation, though it would add more value if you're consistent with this lecture series. So make it a part of your daily routine. And I will see you next time with July 13th, 2024's newspaper. Thank you, everyone.